Hello everyone and welcome to this video where I'm going to show you an incredible gambit, perfectly named the Drunken Bishops Gambit. It was discovered about a month ago by this YouTuber Adam Yosha, who has an incredible talent not only to discover hidden, crazy, fantastic ideas in openings, but also to name them, like the Drunken Bishops Gambit. What a perfect name! Who doesn't want to play the Drunken Bishops Gambit? Or the Xena Attack? I want to play the Xena Attack. Or Gandalf Gambit? Sure, why not? So you should definitely check his channel, and of course I put the link in the description. So just before we jumped into the variations, a few words. Many of you have joined this channel after you have seen my video about the cheating allegations, and welcome, but this channel is mainly in French, and so because many of you are newcomers, are English speakers, I decided to that starting from now I will do my best content in both French and English, but I will keep most of my videos in French. And yeah, so there will be a playlist of my English videos, and so you are welcome to watch them, but otherwise most of videos will be in French. So now let's go into this Drunken Bishops Gambit. So it's a gambit for black, which arrives after e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, the Petrov defense, and after knight takes e5 we won't play d6, the normal move, we won't play knight to c6, the Stafford gambit, and we won't play the knight takes e4, which is better than its reputation. Instead, we will play d5, which is a move that was played back in 2016 and 2017 by two stars, Bahadur Jobava, Super Grandmaster from Georgia, and Kevin Bardi, aka Blitzstream, a French very popular streamer. So we can call it this gambit as the Jobava Blitzstream gambit. White has to take because otherwise black will take either with the pawn or the knight. So it takes d5, queen takes d5, and basically for a pawn black will take a lead in development. Here the most popular move is knight back to f3, but after this we'll take a look also at d4, which is possible. But let's see first what happens after knight to f3. Here most of the time people play bishop to g4, which is a bit imprecise because white can play knight to c3, queen to h5, it's the ID, the queen is perfectly placed here, not only putting pressure on this diagonal but also on this file and on the h2 pawn, especially after bishop d6. But here black seems to have a great compensation for the pawn thanks to the lead in development, but it will be worth nothing if white can exchange the queen, and surprisingly they can, thanks to a very beautiful geometrical ID, queen to e2 check, bishop e7, and queen to b5 check again, and on the next move white will be up a pawn in an endgame, so clearly we do not want that. So instead of the dubious bishop g4, we play perfectly with knight to c6, and we want bishop to g4 next. So here knight to c3, very natural to attack the queen with a developing move, and it's the best move for white. We go to h5, and here we'll take a look at bishop e2 later, but first let me show you the main variation, knight to b5, which leads to this variation, the Drunken Bishops variation of the Jobava Blitzstream Gambit, knight to b5. It's a move that is difficult to see, but if you see it with white, you can't resist playing it, because it looks just winning. And before we go deeper, let me show you another variation for black. After e4, black can play knight to c6. And here, okay, d4 is probably the best, but many players, including grandmasters, just play knight to f3, hoping for e5 with a transposition into normal territory. But black can play d5 with a strange Scandinavian, yeah? He takes d5, queen takes d5, knight to c3, and here queen to h5 is very interesting. Black wants e5, bishop g4, on castle with perfect and easy play. But it's bad, interesting, but just losing actually, because of knight to b5. And here black is last. Like the best move is to play the pitiful king to d8, which, yeah, we don't want to play, yeah? So this position is winning for white, totally winning for white, but instead of this position, we will have this one. So basically the same, without the pawn on e7, and with the extra move knight to f6. So of course there is a pawn down, but actually it's quite good because it will be easier to develop our bishop, and also the e5 is open towards white's king. So the previous position was losing, but this position is actually great for black. And white can equalize, but only if they play like a computer. So the next move is the first drunken bishop move. Bishop to b4. Like, what? What's the point? Actually, the point is, in the simple words, is to pin the pawn on d2 to prevent white from easily developing. But there is a clear drawback. First of all, the bishop can be attacked, but more important, it loses a rook, like knight takes c7, which, by the way, is best. For instance, if white plays c3, just to kick the bishop away, of course we do not move it, like we don't care, we simply castle, and let's say c takes b4, now black is totally winning. We give a check, bishop to e2, and now what is the winning move? Queen takes b5, yeah, thanks to the pin. So in this position, after the first drunken bishop move, white has to take on c7. So we play king to d8, and the knight takes the rook, and so we are down a rook and 2 pawns. But who cares? Because we have another incredible move, like fantastic. We play the bishop to, do you want to guess? To h3. Like, what? And the crazy idea is simply to put pressure on g2, because we want to give a check, but we want to answer bishop to e2 with bishop takes g2. So of course the first variation to look at is g takes h3, but it simply loses for white because we play rook to e8, and after bishop to e2 we take with the queen, thanks to the pin, and let's say short castle, we play rook takes e2, and black is just winning, like after d4 to try to develop. Yeah, there is another great bishop move, bishop to e1, which was given by Adamisco in his video. Here we simply threaten to take on f2, yeah, and rook takes e1 is impossible because we take on f2 with a check, and then we give a checkmate, and of course if queen takes, we'll simply take the queen. So white has to protect the pawn as they can with bishop to e3, but we simply play knight to d5. We want to take on the next move, and let's say rook takes e1, we take on e3, and it's checkmate on the next move. Queen takes, we give checkmate. So yeah, a cool variation, but it's nothing compared to what I'm going to show you now. Let's say white instead play a3. which is another variation given by Adamisco. But then I promise I will give you new variations, so even if you have seen Adamisco's video, you will learn many new things, many new and beautiful things. So here we'll give this check, and after bishop to e2, it's actually fourth mate. And no, we don't take on g2 with the bishop. Instead, we have this incredibly powerful sacrifice. If you want to pause the video to try and guess it, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to give you the solution. Queen takes f3. Just wonderful. After g takes f3, we play knight to e5 or knight to d4 for that matters, and there is no way to prevent the checkmate with knight to f3. Like a perfect smoothed mate, yeah. We call it in English, I think. So yeah, another wonderful variation. Here Adamisco spends lots of time analyzing rook to g1 with this, which is very strange, but there is an idea. White wants to be able to play bishop to e2 without black having bishop takes g2. So actually a clever move, but it's just losing. We give a check, bishop to e2, and here black wins after knight to d5. So many possible moves for white, but let's say king to f1 to unpin. We go to f4, threatening to take on e2, and after let's say bishop c4, we have this very powerful queen to g4, threatening to take on g2. The pawn is attacked 3 times, protected only 2 times, so it's lost. And after g takes h3, we give a check and we give checkmate on the next move. So in this position, there is actually one move which doesn't lose by force. It's bishop to e2. But we take on g2. It was incredible idea behind this drunken bishop move. White has to play rook to g1, and here we don't take, of course. We simply protect the bishop with queen to h3. As we can see, it's very difficult for white to develop, because the pawn on d2 is pinned, thanks to our drunken bishop move. So we want simply to play rook to e8, and next we take on f3 and it's game over, so white has to react very quickly. So only one move that makes sense, to play c3. And here we take on f3. If rook to g3, we can take on e2. So white has to take back on f3, and we give a check, and bishop to e2. So here Adamisco analyzes queen takes h2, which leads to a draw after king to f1. If we want, we can repeat the moves with queen to h3 check, rook to g2, and we give another check on h1. The rook goes back, and we go back, and yeah, perpetual check. But we can also play foreign if we want, with move like knight to e4. But instead, we'll play knight to e5, because, well, it threatens mate. Here, white can must protect from the mate with rook to g3, and we play knight to d3 check, rook takes d3 check, and we take the rook. White takes the bishop, and here if we count the material, we can see we are down 2 bishops and a pawn. So we have to move with as much power as we can while we can. And in his video about this Drunken Bishops Gambit, Jonathan Schwanz played knight to g4 against Stockfish only chess, and Stockfish blundered into mate with h3, and after knight to h2, Jonathan was able to give checkmate in a few moves. But actually, knight to g4 is losing after a4. Fantastic idea. Knight takes h2, rook to a3, attacking the queen, and yeah, the rook will be perfectly placed in defense, and we are down too much material. So no, we will not play knight to g4, which loses. We play knight to h5, and we want to play knight to f4 next, and it's winning. And here it seems from a human perspective that there is only one move that makes sense, which is to unpin with the king to f1, but it's losing. And the drawing move instead of king to f1 is incredibly amazing, just pure computer aesthetics. But first, let's see why king to f1 is losing. We give a check on h3, king to g1, and here we do not play knight to f4, because after bishop to f1 there is no check. So instead of knight to f4, we take the bishop on e2, queen takes e2, and we play knight to f4 only now. And strangely enough, there is no check for white. We threaten mate, as well as the queen, so queen to f1 is forced. And now, yeah, so we are down so much material, but we attack with the best couple, a queen and her knight. So the queen gives a check, the king has to move to h1, we give another check, back to g1, and here we can play a knight to e2, but even stronger for some reason is knight to h3, we win the queen, and here we are totally winning. Despite being down material for a couple of moves, because the knight on a8 is of course lost, we can take it with the king, but also with the queen. And after this, the material will be more or less equal, but white's king is totally unsafe and will never find safety ever again. And of course, white is too underdeveloped, so black is totally winning here. So that means that here king to f1 is losing, but there is no other move. Actually, there is, if you are a computer or genius, knight to c7. So okay, the idea is we cannot play knight to f4 because white takes, and yeah, there is nothing for black. But we can not only take, but at first glance it seems that we can move the rook, and we'll play knight to f4 next, and the knight is not better placed on c7 as it was on a8, and the rook is better placed on e5 as it was on e8. So what's the deal? Here white managed not to lose, but also to win. Only move with knight to d5. Fantastic. So we cannot take with the rook because then the bishop will be unpinned and be able to take the queen. We cannot take with the queen because then d4 and white pieces come into play. But we can't also play knight to f4 because white takes it. So here we are dead lost. But okay, we simply take the knight. And what's the point? The point is now white can play king to f1. Okay, we give a check, same variation as before, but after king to g1 we cannot take on e2 just like before because the queen takes, and if we play knight to f4, now our king is no longer safe on d8, it's on c7, and white wins with queen to e5 check and queen takes f4 next. So okay, here after a check, into g1 we cannot play rook takes e2, so what do? We play knight to f4, threatening to take on e2, so white, and as well as mate of course, white has to play bishop to f1, and here it seems that we are losing because there is no check. But there is one move to force the perpetual check. Do you want to pause the video? Please do. It's rook to e1, pinning as a bishop, threatening mate, as well as the queen, so the queen has to check, to take, sorry, and now we can give a check on g4, and we give a perpetual check. So this world game would have been one of the most beautiful game ever, and certainly one of the most beautiful short draws in 24 moves ever. Just fantastic stuff, yeah? So okay, now we are going to take a look at the side variations, the sidelines. And we start here after queen takes d5. So the main move is knight to f3. But also commonly played is pawn to g4. A very normal looking move. Developing move, protecting the knight. Here we play knight to c6. And knight to c3 looks stupid because we can take, but actually white would be just a bit better after knight takes c6. We take on d1 with check, knight takes d1, b takes c6, and it's an endgame with equal material, but we just have a poor pawn structure, so yeah, we don't want to suffer for nothing, yeah? I mean, just in a hope of a draw, which sure, it should be the normal result, but let's not play like this. Instead, we will play what Blitzstream, Kevin Body played, bishop to b4. Much better move, playing for activity. Knight takes c6, queen takes c6, and here his opponent, grandmaster opponent, played queen to f3, which is very normal to protect the knight on c3 and to exchange the queen. But now we can take happily because we have destroyed white's pawn structure, and we play bishop to f5, threatening the pawn on c2. So basically we are done a pawn, at least for the moment, but we have so much activity. We will castle long next, putting pressure on d4, rook to e8 is coming, and yeah, it's actually quite hard to defend the pawn on c2. So black is at least equal, let's say. But here, of course, knight to c3 is not the only move. White can take on c6, and we take back with the queen, of course. And here there is this very nice idea that is remindful of the queen to e2 check, queen to b5 that I have shown you before. So queen to e2 check, bishop to e6, and queen to b5. And here Jobava played queen takes b5, bishop takes b5, c6, bishop to e2 long castle, with some compensation for the pawn, but I much prefer castling, strangely enough, because white takes the queen, and now we have a poor pawn structure, at least it seems so. But we will use our double pawn to play c5, not only once, but maybe 2 times, to open the center and the position, to make use of our lead in development, even though it's an endgame. And here, yeah, it's equal. Just bishop. We have a great compensation for the pawn. After bishop to e3, we play c5. White takes the pawn, and we play knight to g4, threatening to take on e3, and with bishop to c5 next. If white protects their pawn with b4, we take the bishop, so now we are done 2 pawns, but we simply play g6, and we'll play either bishop to g7 or to h6 or to e8 next. So it's very likely that soon enough we will win back at least 1 pawn and still have good compensation for the other pawn. Yeah, it's an interesting equal game. So let's go back to here. So knight to f3 is the main move, and we don't play the dubious bishop to g4, but the very precise knight to c6. White plays knight to c3, we play queen to h5, and here you are more likely to face bishop to e2 rather than knight to b5, which leads to the Drunken Bishops variation of the Jobava Blitzstream Gambit. So let's say bishop to e2, and we play bishop to g4. And white plays h3, which is the best move according to the computer. And here we do not play bishop to d6, which looks normal because we want answering short castle with bishop takes h3, which would be great for black, but here, after bishop to d6, white has a fantastic defense idea. Knight to g1, like, wow. And the point is that after bishop takes e2, white take on e2 with the queen and giving a check, and once again we are forced to enter an endgame down a pawn, so we do not want that. So instead we castle on the long side, of course. Here there is no point in knight to g1 because we simply take, and after queen takes e2 we don't exchange the queen, we win the queen with rook to e8. And if knight takes g2 we simply play bishop to d6, so we have a huge lead in development, and after castle we play g5, reminding white that moving their pawn on h3 was a bit weakening. Next we play g4, opening the g file, yeah, with a crushing attack. So knight to g1 here is just as stupid as it looks. g4 is, I don't think you will face such a move, because first bishop d6 is great, but also we can play bishop to c5, putting huge pressure against this pawn, so more likely you will face a short castle. And here of course we take on h3. White has to take, and we take with the queen, and here we'll simply want knight to g4, and next knight to g4 to deviate the knight on f3, or simply bishop to d6 to play bishop to h2 for instance. So white has to react very quickly, and the best move and only move that doesn't lose according to the computer is to play knight to g5. And here we play queen to h4, and okay, according to the computer, for some reason d3 leads to a draw after bishop to d6 and f4 and so on, but it seems that it's a bit lucky for white, and I prefer to show you this variation after knight back to f3. And here we don't repeat moves, we give a check on g4, and after king to h1 we play bishop to d6, and we want to give a check, and then knight to d4. So white has to react with knight to h2, and here we have to play a very precise move, very beautiful. Once again, we don't play queen to h3 because there is this check, and yeah, we are lost. We don't play queen to h4 because white plays f4, and once again it's complicated. Maybe not lost, but complicated. So instead we play queen to f4, threatening to take, and white cannot play f4 themselves. So white has to go back with a knight, and here we give a check, and the king has to move, and here we will do this very nice maneuver with the queen. We give a check, the king goes back, we give a check, the king goes back, we give a check, the king goes back, we give a check. So there is no knight to h2, so king to g1 is forced, and now we play knight to d4, deviating the knight on f3, and it's game over. And that concludes our analysis of this Drunken Bishop variation of the Jobava Blitzstream Gambit. So many thanks to the inventor Adam Yosha, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please, if you are a newcomer, just tell me in the comments if you want me to continue doing like normal chess videos like this, not related to the cheating scandal, in English. And see you soon. Ciao.